Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the first session of our mini conference, Emergency Remote Teaching and Learning. Candy Mowen is here, and we're so delighted to have you kicking us off, Candy. Watching you before the session was like a master class in facilitating conversation before a session begins. So you started out quite well. I'm going to turn the time over to you, and you can start sharing your screen now.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Steve, and I appreciate this very much, this opportunity. Let me get everything up here and running, and there we go. And welcome, everybody. And as Steve said, I am Candy Mowen, and a little bit about me. I've been teaching for about 11 years. I've probably 4 of those 11 were on ground in a campus setting. And then 7 years we went online. First 2 years were what we called a hybrid or a blended classroom. And that's where we had a little bit of campus life along with the online environment. And today I'm going to talk to you about engaging online learners. And we all see that during this time, especially this pandemic that we are having, that some folks, whether they are instructors, whether they are students, some have been propelled into the online realm, whether they wanted to do it or not. And we want to talk today about how we can get the most from our online learners. And as educators, what we can do to enhance our learning and facilitating an online environment to helping those that we have to instruct. Now, I see Helene did do, and I was going to just ask that, is how many of you have either facilitated an online class or course, have taken an online class or course, or have taught an online course? And I see a lot of raised hands here. Okay, a lot going into the hundreds. Okay, facilitated, taught online. Yes, did all 3. Never. Okay, and thank you. Okay, so hopefully when we are done and we have time here for question and answers, we can share some experiences. I'm going to share with you what I have used, what I've talked to some of my colleagues about, what they've been successful. Yes, there are some downfalls and there are some learning experiences that I will share with you about that. And first off, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to pretend you're the student, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to type what you think. What elements do you think are critical to online learning? What are some words, just a word, that you think are critical to an online learning environment? And I see motivation, interaction, engagement, design, Wi-Fi, yep, communication, interaction, meaning, technology, connectivity, knowing the students, feedback, follow-up, time management. Very good. And these are all excellent. And some of you hit it right on the nose, and some of it will kind of come into the different categories. And I'm going to introduce to you what I've learned, and I've talked about this to several people, even my students, is 6 essential elements for engaging online learners that are very, very critical. And we're going to look and break each one of these down. And honesty, openness, respect, relevance, responsiveness, and empowerment. And a lot of these you will see piggyback off of each other. They will piggyback off of each other. Yep, Tom, curiosity is one thing also. And some of that does come into the play. Now, first off, if you were a student, whether you were, have just come from a face-to-face brick and mortar classroom, is, yep, sure, patience is very important, especially as a facilitator, especially if you were thrown into an environment that you were not used to even being trained in. And I know in the public sector of where my community is, a lot of my friends are teachers in the public school system. They were very intimidated, they were very lost, and did lose patience in trying to quickly adapt to trying to get something set up for the students. But honesty is very important. It's a sense of safety. It's very important to be safe, have our students feel that when they come into the classroom, that they are not going to be judged on an answer, that they are not going to be judged on their point of view. So we as facilitators have to, the main thing is to present a safe environment to our students. They have to trust us. They have to be able to be confident in not only their relationship to the instructor, but to their peers. It's very important that they feel like they can share and learn off of different perspectives and point of views in that classroom. Openness, that plays off and has honesty and respect. They have to be able to feel free to share their opinion, again, without feeling judged. Learners should have the inhibitions to share their personal thoughts with their peers, and that grows over a time frame. Now, I know when I teach, we have anywhere from 8-week courses to 10-week courses, and it's very short of a time frame to build that trust, to build that openness, and I try to do that. I try to get that safe environment. Now, in the public sector, they have students for the whole year, so they have that bond. But in a 10-week course, it's hard to do that, and you have to do that with your feet running right on the first night. And sometimes I try to establish that the week prior to the opening of a term. Emails, communication, and communication. I was really glad to see that you were saying communication, because in an online course environment, communication is key. So respect, two-way street. It has to be earned. It has to be between the facilitator and the students and their fellow classmates. It's very, very important. Everybody in the environment needs that respect, and you as a facilitator have to instill that. You have to make sure that is understood right from the start. Relevance leads to continued engagement. And I am a person, and what we're going to talk about today, you can take forward into any course you teach, any department that you are in. I am a math teacher. I've taught math, I've taught educational courses, I've taught business courses, but my passion is mathematics. And you have to be able to lead the information and the content that you are engaging and giving to your students in something to take out into their career. I know some students have said to me, Professor, when am I ever going to learn this? When am I ever going to use this again? And you have to have it that it's related to something they're going to take away. New knowledge. Learning by sharing experiences. Whatever I can introduce to the student, but they can also share it with me. And as a facilitator, you have to be open-minded enough to realize that you might learn something new also. Sharing personal and professional experiences is very important. Very important. Responsiveness. Participants are able to rely and reply to each other. Responsiveness also can be with assignments. Sometimes in our LMS systems, we have discussion boards as part of a grade, part of an assignment. There again, responsibility of replying on a timely manner. Same goes with instructors. Feedback and replying to a student's questions, their concerns. Interaction. I like to do group projects, and sometimes it's become easier in the online atmosphere to share and have students share and participate as a group. They really learn from each other. Again, it's accountability to each members of the group. And finally, a critical key to engaging online learners is empowerment, intellectual and cognitive growth. I like to see my students have that aha moment. It is very satisfying to me as an instructor to see that something that they were struggling with, that I have made an impact. I was successful in helping them with their struggles, sharing, applying, implementing ideas. It's very important for empowerment to have learners encouraged as a lifelong learner. Yes, it will be at the end of the session. Yes, I do, Kelly. I do believe that these are same for adult learners. I teach adult learners. I feel that sometimes you go into the mindset, and we're going to talk about that in this afternoon's session that I'm going to be holding, knowing your students, and that's very important. I taught in the public sector for about 2 years as a substitute, and I taught from primary to senior high students, and these can be adapted to the generation, to the learners that you have in your classroom. Because I like to tell my students, I like to tell my grandchildren, you must be lifelong learners. I try as a person, as an educator, to encourage my students as well as myself, is I try to learn something new every day. If you can learn something new every day, it doesn't matter if it's just the most minute thing, is you have to be able to be a learner. Get them involved from the beginning. Well, we're going to talk about that. Yes, Alfredo. Yes, some students do require some techie tools, and in the online environment, and we're going to talk about this maybe in another seminar, is what tools do instructors need inside the classroom as far as LMS, and that has to go with the school system itself. You have to have a curriculum team that decides what learning management system is effective to your college, to your students. And then you go to publishers, and then that builds from the content that you want into your environment. Do you want a lot of assignments? Do you want more of the test quizzes as multiple choice? Do you want them more of essays? That is something that you have to decide and present and talk with your curriculum team about. Now, here we're going to look at strategies for engaging online learners. And I placed the first one, I feel, in bold, that is very, very important. And that is training instructors in online learning. And the one thing, it's very important, if you do not provide training for an instructor, whether it be a conference, a course, professional development, it is important. And I know when we went from the online campus portion to even the blended learning, some of the instructors fought tooth and nail. They hated change. They did not like change. Some of them had several years and did not want to learn new online training. They were fearful of technology. And well, training is important. I am a certified faculty developer. And what you need to do is get them comfortable in the online classroom, whether it be practicing in a Zoom. I've been introduced to Zoom here in the last month, and I love it. We have, where I've taught before, have taught and used a learning management system called Bongo. It has its positives, it has its negatives. You know, technology is great when it's working, but when it's not, it's not. You have to be able to struggle through storms and students not having the good bandwidth. There is struggles. There are things that you have to work through and be prepared for. I found that sometimes when we had storms where I was at, some of the students did not. Sometimes you know, if my internet went out. Now, yes, I have an Ethernet cord, but sometimes when it goes out in a storm, you were there and you were kind of blind. What you would do is if you had a recording of a previous seminar, you could send out that URL. Sometimes I found that I had to just go into a Google Hangout and record that portion of the seminar that they did not have and send it out. So there again, you know, you have to be able to train the instructors. They're not always going to, you know, train them in something that does occur. It could be something that they weren't aware of. But you have to train them, especially if they are thrown into the online classroom. I train them in announcements. Announcements, you will have a platform or some way of communication. There again, how to spice up an announcement board on an LMS system. Clip art, YouTube video embeds, ways to entice the learner that this is what we're going to talk about this week. This is, you know, what you're going to be prepared to do. There is another announcement that I had a to-do list. Help them know what they need to do for that particular unit. Then have a review right before the unit ends and say, okay, this is what we talked about. This is what we went over. This is what we're going to look at too in the next unit. It is, you know, giving them, announcing them. Instructors have to be present, especially in the online platform. Students have to know that you are there. It's a two-way street. Sometimes in the classroom, you give them a little bit of a clue or a little bit of something that you want them to report back to you and say, okay, write me a little bit about the seminar. This is a little trick that I've included to do because sometimes, folks, you don't know. I do not give my students video. They can see me. I welcome them. I go over what we went over last week, what we're going to introduce this week, and then I go off and all they can do is hear me. They don't need to see my mug the whole entire time. I don't grant them because it would be too chaotic, and I don't grant them mic rights also. Some platforms only require license for eight mic rights. But how do you create motivation? Well, I give them a little taste of what we're going to look at. I do different ways. We do webinars where we go take web field trips. I just show my passion. I provide them PowerPoints of what we're going to talk about. They bring it to class and they take notes of some important problems, some important things that they're going to need to know for their homework. So you have to set up a positive and welcoming environment. You need to look at how you can make the seminars, your information that you're provided, conducive to online learning. You have to develop a better instruction and improve student learning connections with curriculum. You have to look at professional development. We talked about that. It's very, very important. Distracted students, and like I said, I present a little bit of a clip, something that I want them to give me back, maybe in the form of a discussion or a form of an email or a little, maybe 3 or 4 sentences. And I know then that the student was present in the seminar. I might wait till, if we have an hour seminar, I might wait till 40 minutes left. That way I know the students did not walk away and are not doing the dishes, or they're not cleaning, or they're not doing the laundry. I know that they are there. And you have to pretty much have a 60-minute seminar. There again, leaving it right out from the beginning, presenting and laying down the rules right from the start. Telling them what to expect. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, of what to expect in MM 100 or in MA or in English Comp 200. If you let them know right from the start what the expectations and requirements are, there is a lot less confusion and a lot less, pretty much a lot less questions that they don't understand. Content versus presenter. We want to give them, we want to present to them, but we also want to give them the feel of they have some control also in the online realm. We want to give them some say. And if you give a student some say in how their classroom, whether it be the seminar, whether it be the assignments, they find that they have something to say. They're accountable, they are respectful, and they kind of participate. You assign the instructional choices with learning outcomes. If you present to the students what that particular unit or information you covered is with the learning outcomes you want them to know from that particular unit, from those particular assignments, they see that. Assessment, very important. How are they going to be assessed? What are they going to be assessed on in the assignment? And important feedback. Giving them feedback on what they have done well, what they need improvement on, improvement, feedback that maybe you want to share to the whole class as a whole. I know discussion boards are very hard, and it depends on how you conduct the discussion board. I found in the last several years, discussion boards are that. They are the discussion, they are the framework of an online environment, because that is a way for students that aren't in a face-to-face classroom to interact, to respond to each other. So discussion boards, I can tell you right now, folks, they are fine if you want to put in an essay now and then, but the students do not respond well to essays. Discussions can be maybe scenarios. I like discussion boards as a group topic, because they want to know, especially in a math class, why are we doing essays in a math class? And I have a session that I've talked about before on how that you can make it conducive to students. I've done online study groups, how to have students facilitate their own online study groups. That is another session, but that has helped students. So I tell them, discussion boards are like if you are in an on-ground classroom and you decide 8 or 10 of you to go to Starbucks. This is a way that you can talk to each other, and you can learn from each other. Now, as I said, setting up a positive and welcoming environment. I post a picture, a little bit about myself in my online classroom. Hello, I'm Professor Candy Mowen. I tell them a little bit about me professionally, and I tell them a little bit about me personally. That way we can interact. I ask them to do the same. They can put a post, they can post a picture, they can tell me what I ask them their goals. What do they want out of their college career? What do they want out of this classroom? Tell me a little bit about yourself personally. And from that point of view, I send this can be in the announcement, and it also can be in a welcome email. It can tell them exactly what they need to know. And another thing that I have set up over the years is a optional seminar prior to the start of the term where I send out a link, I set up a room and have my students come in. And I welcome them and we talk a little bit. It's very, very informal. And I lay the ground rules. I tell them what is the expectations of the class, what is my expectations, what is required from them. I give them an idea. We go over the syllabus. We go over the grading system. What they are expected to do every week, when our classes are. And then there is no question on the first night of class what they need to do. And then I can go right into our unit. I record this seminar and I send it out to everybody in the class because some folks maybe didn't come. It is an optional, so they're not graded. And then everybody knows. And if somebody in the middle of the first seminar says, "Hey, professor, you know, do we get graded on this?" And I say, "Did you listen to the recording of what to expect in MA 100? And they say, "No." I say, "You listen to that, and then you come back to me with any questions." And I tell them to email me those questions. When you set up a positive and welcoming environment, it is safe, it is supportive, it's interactive, it's flexible, and it's engaging. You have to make sure that it is safe. You have to be supportive of all online students. And it's just like if you were in a brick and mortar classroom. The flipped classroom, I've had the ability to do that just very little when we first started the hybrid. The flipped classroom is more into, I feel, the public sector, where you introduce an idea and then the student goes home, does the homework, does more research, and then they come in the next day and then they talk about what they've done. The only bad part about that part, and I feel it is negative, and some folks may disagree with me, is if you have parents that work or just do not understand new math, do not understand the teaching of the Common Core, things like that, then the student's going to struggle. If they don't have internet, if they don't have a laptop, a lot of school districts I know now are providing notebooks and laptops to students. But if a family does not have the Wi-Fi, they don't have the ability, then the students do struggle. And I do see that the flipped classroom, I think, is better for maybe that of higher education, but it is a tool that I know some of our public sector school districts are introducing. Interaction, it's got to be that you have to encourage interaction. There again, you must be the facilitator of your seminars. And I have, I've had not too many undesirable experiences in a seminar, but I do take note. I do not allow bullying in my seminar, and sometimes you will have that student that does feel, especially if you have different learning levels. And I try to make sure that my students that are a little bit slower learners do, understand before we go on to the next topic or the next slide. And I say that right from the start, that those of you that do have a little bit more experience and are comfortable with some of the learning, that please wait, and until we have everybody on the same page. Sometimes you're never going to have everybody on the same page, but I try not to hurry. And there again is, what do you plan on covering in a seminar? And that too can help with a positive environment. You can't have everything, you have to have it used as chunked. And we're going to talk about chunked here in a minute. And sometimes you have to have the responsibility back on the student. They have to also be able to look and take away from things in that unit. You use the term flipped classroom, your definition. Well, my definition of a flipped classroom is where you come to a face-to-face classroom and you have some interaction with the students and you introduce some of the topics, and then you give them an assignment. You will place have like a classroom online in an environment and in a learning management system. The student goes home and they might open up, say, Unit 2, and they will say, it will say, okay, this is what, say we're doing percents, and this is the extension of what I talked about in that unit in the online classroom. And they will then do, say, a 20 question worksheet. Well, they will concentrate on what we talked about and percents. Then they come back into the classroom and they might be introduced to some other activity. I would go over, maybe I would say grading it, and then we would come back in as a class and go over any misconceptions that the students have from that worksheet, or what they maybe their assignment from that previous night. That's what I feel is a flipped classroom. Now, hybrid or a blended classroom in the college intellect is where you come to class for say an hour or two seminar or classroom activities, and then you go home and you have a component. It can be a discussion board component, it can be an online graded assignment. We use MML in math, which is my math lab, where they have quizzes and homework assignments that's computerized. So it depends on the particular college or high school or elementary school that you would use a flipped classroom. So what do we do to create a learning community? Well, instructors' course and personal philosophy. They have to know what my teaching styles are, and that's why I try to do that from day one, or even in that seminar of what to expect in the classroom. I want them to be comfortable with my classroom philosophies. Um, Communication. I reinforce that communication is key. Their success is my success when they have done well in my course. What is my instructional style? And I tweak that sometimes weekly or sometimes in a course. It's important role of communication is key, and making classroom relevant to their field. It's very important when you are creating a learning community. Give students a sense of ownership and control. Helps with motivation. It kind of energizes, it directs, and it sustains their behavior. If they have goals and activities, show and ask them. Direction of what they have in autonomy. What do they want? Promote long-term success. Enhance cognitive processing and how information is processed. Let the students, from day one say, okay, we're going to have an assignment here in week 3. And what would you like to be graded on? What do you want to be assessed on? Do you want a discussion board? Do you want homework? Do you want a multiple choice and say class or problem solving? Let the students give their sense of ownership and control. And that's very important. Students really like to have a say in how they want things done. Self-assessment. Sometimes have the students do their own self-assessments. They can learn, and it's a little bit diversity. Let their voice be heard. Some students, don't wait to do these adjustments at the end of the term or end of the year. Do it throughout, because once you've lost students and they don't feel motivated, they don't feel like they're encouraged to really participate and be part of the classroom, then you've lost them, and it's very hard to get them back. Very hard to get them back. Diversity. Your delivery methods have to be diverse. Stay relevant, be organized, and chunk it. And what is chunking? Well, that's where, sometimes you read content that is broken up into shorter lessons. And that's what I use when I decide what I'm going to deliver in my classroom for the seminar. What is going to be on their assessments? What is going to be on their quizzes? What do I want them to know from that unit? What is the important parts? And I chunk that right in there, and I decide, okay, how many slides can I cover within my time limit of my seminar? I have to allow for questions. I have to allow for going back over a concept. Adding interaction, it's very important also. How do you want student engagement? Mix it up. Mix up some of the delivery. As I said, do a online webinar, a field trip, audio. Invite a guest presenter in, maybe somebody that in my business mathematics class, when we're talking about loans, have somebody come in that week and maybe talk for 15 minutes. That's a banker that wants to talk to you about financial institutions and how they do loans. It's a way to break up the monotony of hearing me all the time, and getting another perspective and point of view from a professional, from a person that is a guest speaker. With communication, decide whether you want to text information, questions, whether you want to give out personal cell number that you want the students, or make it that you can only talk during these certain hours of the day, or live office hours. Okay, depends on what you want to do, but there again, you are hitting a lot of diverse students in that way. Align with that a success coach. And I like to sometimes set up a coach not only to my students, but to the faculty below me, especially if they are new to the online realm. They have a mentor. They have a success coach where they can go to for questions. Not only me, but somebody else that might have some feedback, some way of sharing that is a soundboard. I assign success coaches also to my students. I feel that I am that success coach. Studying advanced, especially to new freshmen or new students to the online learning environment. Let them have a little bit of a session on how to navigate the platform, how to navigate their homework. Be a guide, show a guide to the students. Doesn't only help facilitators, but it also helps your students. Yes, a success coach can be the same as a mentor. Yes. One other way, encourage accountability. Manage expectations. Check in, notifications. There again, I gave you some ideas with the announcement page. Emails. Emails, say they fell off the face of the earth after Unit 3. Show them that you care. You wonder, hey, you're just checking in. You'd be surprised how there's been things that we all realize life happens. I saw a student who had an A, and in week 4 disappeared. Well, found out that they had some personal problems with their family, and they were so happy that I reached out, got them back on track, and they fell behind, but I was willing to work with them. There again, You have to decide on what your late policies are, and how you can encourage accountability through, right from the start again, that goes in what do you expect. Uh, Congratulate students that are doing well in a congratulatory email. Hey, another successful week. Keep up the good work. Remember, I'm here from you. I'm here there for you throughout the term. Please, know that your hard work did not go unnoticed. Also, I send out emails for the students who are not doing very well and say, hey, I see that you're struggling. Here is some additional resources. Don't forget the online success center if your school has that. I'm here for you. Don't forget your announcement page where I've included some online videos for you. You have to nurture natural motivation. What drives a student forward? What is going to help them? Sometimes you have to realize that juggling courses with other responsibility is, we have to be understanding with the students. Help students that are struggling to keep doing difficult tasks. Fuel participation and engagement. Make them feel that they matter. And that is very, very important, making the students know that maybe they are struggling, but they do matter. They are part of that course and that you are there for them. So you have to ask yourself, are you being driven or are you being called? If you feel that you are, uh, being driven or forced into the online environment, maybe you better take a step back and say, okay, is this the opportunity for me, or how can I feel like I'm being called? Because if you feel it's a chore, then your students are going to know that. And you really have to decide, where you are at. Sometimes, uh, you have to really think, why did I become an instructor? Why did I become a teacher? Things aren't always going to stay the same. So how do you enhance online learning? Well, you build a great environment. You engage students. You foster that community building between you and your students and their peers. You answer questions. When there's a question, you answer it. You're an instructor, activity in the course, you're there, you're present. They know that. Sometimes I've tried it in the past. It depends on your, and you will know the class situation. Sometimes I will ask for the students to take over a portion of the class and teach. Sometimes you have to watch that. You don't want somebody to feel that they're, having their pets or their favorites. But if somebody steps up, it's a way to help the students engage. And it helps maybe the students see the perspective from another peer. You have to meet the students' needs. Push the students. Leverage technology. Okay, leverage technology, discussion boards, photos, videos, PowerPoints. Sometimes there again, in choosing the learning management system, find out, you know, make sure that that they do have the capability of sometimes enhancing a PowerPoint during the seminar. Okay, that sometimes you'd be surprised what a little cartoon will make a student be engaged or be there. So overall design of online learning, and I use the STAR strategy. S for situation, set the tone for the course from the start. Get what the situation is, what you want it to be. Task, what to expect. What do you want from that student? What are their tasks going to be? And provide guidance for those tasks and how that they can be met. Actions, encourage questions. A lot of being curious and find out. There's never a dumb question. And finally, R is results. make it clear what the results are. And this strategy really helps with the design of the online learning platform. So what makes online learners effective? Well, think. What tips, strategies can you implement in your own classroom? What are some strategies? Talk to people that you can put into your classroom that is going to be shows you and what you are there for. Turn to a partner, share your responses to these questions. There again, do group activities. Talk to a colleague. What have they used? Share that with other colleagues. Use that pair and share and think in the classroom setting with your students. Share insights that you can share with the entire group. Encourage your students to share their insights to the classroom. Sometimes, students not only want to hear my thoughts or my perspective as an instructor, but they want to hear what their classmates are saying. Some assessment tools to use in engaging online students. Rubrics are very important, and we're going to look at how important a rubric is. Tests and quizzes, they've been around forever. They do help, especially in certain classes, assess students. We don't want to test our students to death because sometimes they really get burned out with tests. Peer projects, as I said, group assignments is a very good way to not only encourage collaboration, but teamwork. Self-assessments, having students assess their own uh, assignments, their own capabilities, their own learning, what they've learned. And reflection, have our students reflect back on what they've learned, what they could learn better, how they can study better, what some of their time management are. But the rubric can help with a lot of things. Rubrics can make your grading, your assessment, and can be adapted to all sorts of the tests and quizzes, to the peer projects, to the discussion boards, to a lot of, even have sample rubrics for self-assessments to students. Decide the points. What is appropriate? If you only responded to 4 or 5 questions, that's 80 points. You don't have to have 100 points. Sometimes an assignment might be only 10 points. And how do you adapt the rubric? Rubrics encourage critical thinking, especially if you provide the rubrics to your students ahead of time and know what they need to do to get that grade or what they need to do to get those points. You'd be surprised. I know students in a math class, they struggle, but some of them know exactly what percentage of discussion boards that they can blow off and still get a B or C in the class. Well, an online learning tool is discussion boards, is quizzes, is peer projects. You can assign a peer group to do research together. In my online math class, in geometry, when we're talking about that, I have students pick a floor plan to a house, and each student assigned, say, a room, or they are assigned the crown molding, and they have to do the layout of the house. They pick the room, to get the dimensions, and they figure out how much crown molding or how much carpet they need in that room. That helps with an online learning tool. But rubrics are very important. They encourage self-assessment, reflection. They motivate students to succeed because they know that they are going to be graded on. Also, what we want in a nutshell. What do we want our students in the online community to have? Well, we want curiosity. That's very important. We want to teach our students to be responsible, to develop skills, and we want them to be curious. We want them to be excited. What kind of platform I use? Well, where I was teaching, we used Bongo and Brightspace. And that was, that was what I had to use. Bongo was the seminar platform. Brightspace was the learning management as far as grade books, as far as discussion boards. Confidence. We want our students to have and know and meet their student individual levels of proficiency. We have to have perseverance, open communication, transitions to what we want the student to learn. All these three are very important of what we want in a nutshell when we, what we want them to take away. And one thing that is very important as a facilitator, as an instructor, is reflection. Sit back at the end of your seminars, sit back at the end of your term, of your weeks, and have a checkpoint and reflect and say, okay, what went wrong? Maybe what assignment didn't go over very well? What way did I maybe cover a particular unit that didn't go well with my students? What can I change? How can I change this? What went right? What can I include that next time? And continue as you started. Be there, be encouraged. Sometimes things are not going to work the way they did, in the way that you had anticipated. But how do we learn from it? We still want to continue as we started. We want to continue to grow and have our students grow. These are the references that I've used. And here's my contact information. And I'm sorry if I didn't get everybody's question, but we have about 8 minutes left you can specifically ask me anything else you want to have. If you want to me to expand more, I'm going to give my PowerPoints to Steve to upload with the recordings. And you can email me and we can talk. I'd be glad to do a Zoom hangout to, yes, we can go, I think, unless you want to go to the next seminar. What can you do if the whole family is making noise? Well, if you're an instructor and worried about this, your family behind you, if that's the concept that you're talking about, is you have to go to a room where it's going to be conducive to not having family and dogs and everything. If you're talking about a student, then you have to tell them, they have to pick up and they have to really they're there to study. And it's just like if you were in a brick and mortar, there's going to be distractions, somebody talking and everything like that, but you have to have them be committed, and they have to be committed. Now, in a developmental course maybe in the primary public sector, I had students sign a learning contract where this is where they wanted to be at a certain point in time, and that they had some responsibilities that they had to meet and they had to do. I don't know if that's very good here for adults, but there again, that helps with the commitment. Tina, you may have mentioned this, but as a math instructor, did you use demos or some other math-specific online tools? I used a lot of YouTube videos. I did use a lot of me talkovers in maybe like demonstrating step-by-step. Kaltura is a way that you can do videos, but that has to be bought out and included by an institution. I don't think that the private person can buy Kaltura, but it is a library that you can make interactive videos with closed caption. You can give that to your students, and you can go and say, okay, you can do a step-by-step. I wrote out a step-by-step in my handwriting how to do factoring of polynomials, and it kind of drew it into a box, and the students really liked that. So there are ways out there. If you want to collaborate with me or talk to me, no, my name is not Candace. No, it is just plain old Candy. So, whoops. So, you know, you can contact me, and we can really talk, and we can collaborate. I'd be really interested in working with a lot of you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we can still share some more uh, theories, some more experiences, and everything. So here, like I said, here is my email. I'm really anxious to hear from folks, and they don't have to be math instructors. I can help you. Like I said, I am a certified faculty development developer, and I can help you with learning more, being more adaptive to the online realm, give you some you know, uh, some pointers, some information, even maybe some resources that will help you with the online platform. I've trained our faculty, and I've been trained some other faculty. If you know of any institutions that want their faculty trained, I'd be glad to do a faculty training. They can contact me, and we can set up some sessions, and anywhere in the do a Zoom, do a Google Hangout, but I can train for whatever, so you can make sure. And I'm also on the Learn Revolution site. You can, in my discussion board, any questions, any comments, I'll be glad to talk with you. So, let me know if you want, and those of you that are in the library, if you want to hold any sessions for training that you feel that your instructors might need, please make sure, you let me know. And let's see, let me scroll down here. I have so many that I kind of got to continue here. There we go. So if anybody wants to stick around and talk a little bit, I don't know, Tamara, let me see here where the question and answers are. Let me see. Oh, there might be up here. I'll do stop sharing. Okay, here is what is effective maximum number of pupils? Well, I would say we usually have 30 to 40 in our classrooms. You can do group projects in a seminar. You can also assign them in a Google Hangout where they can meet. You can share the slides. Yep, and any course you can use anything that I've shared. I don't have the rights, so yes, please do email me if you want some teaching material for math. I will be glad to get that to you. We can talk about that. Well, recommendations for students, I just say, show them in different platforms. Once they decide what learning management system in, then you prepare them. I've done eCollege, I've done Brightspace, I've done Google. I could probably do Zoom because I am getting familiar with that. Google Hangouts, Brightspace. I have to say Brightspace is a little bit, I found when I was teaching here a couple weeks ago, it does have a lot of bugs, and you really, I mean, I'm sure I've used Blackboard as a student, but it's not too much different than the e-learning. But you train your teachers, you have to give them professional development. Grades 8, 7 through 12, well, that depends on if you're working in 6-week increments or how you're doing it. In the college realm, we are allowed 2 weeks, the students are allowed 2 weeks to turn in any graded homework assignments. That is like math homework. And then they get a 10% per week up to 2 weeks. That's amounts to 1.4% per day that they are late. Again, that is embedded into their computerized homework. Discussion boards, we do not allow for students to make that up. Now there again, that is was our school policy. That can be in your own classroom. You can delegate that. There again, I know it's rubrics are harder for younger students, but you could make a rubric that is students friendly for elementary or middle school students to have them realize what they're being assessed on. Grades duration, I would say, Jolly, 60 minutes, maybe 45. Younger students, maybe a half an hour for maybe first graders through fourth grade. You can try it. You could try it with the younger students, 15 minutes. But high school students, I don't think an hour is that long, because that traditionally, what I can remember from high school is normally what a high school face-to-face classroom would be. If you're just doing some online learning and implementing it just in sections, you might be able to cover it in a half an hour, depending on what you want it to be a style for. If you're just doing it now for COVID-19, you might want to just do a 45-minute to a half an hour, depending on what you are introducing to them. Sometimes you can enable and disable private chats. I do that in my online seminars. Students cannot have private chats with each other because that's distracting and they're not paying attention to me. So I disable that function, and a lot of learning management systems allow that. And as I said before, you can also um, have students, if you want them to have the rights to talk or the mics, they can. If not, then you can disable that and also. Well, what I do with that, if you're giving them a pre-recorded video, sometimes if I did it in a previous class, then you had the students there and they could read the script and maybe their question was answered that way. If you're doing it for the first time, then I would have the students listen to it, look at it, and then if you want to hold an optional like Google Hangout and answer questions maybe for a half an hour, that's up to you with how much time you want to put into it. Or I would just say, email you any questions. If you find that there are a lot of the same questions, then you might want to readdress that and send out something, maybe another video, or again hold a session where people can come. I used to have tutoring sessions held after seminars. I would pick a day and time, set an hour that students could come in and we could talk about those that were struggling, and we would have a session prior to the start of the next unit. And that got to be some time consuming, but the students liked it and it was useful to them. Well, Caroline, that's a good question too. How do you assess Unit 2 if the students haven't completed Unit 1? Again, it depends on what you're assessing and what the assignment is. If you're having a computerized, there again, if it's automatically graded, that pretty much handles it for you. If you're waiting for them to submit a say an essay, then you would almost just grade it when it turns in. What I tell my students is, it's like with a discussion board when I don't allow them to make up a discussion board. It's like if you're in a room with a group of people and you're talking, you're discussing, and everybody leaves and you're the only person here, conversation stops. And that's the same way with a discussion board. People are not going to go back into unit 3 when you moved on to unit 4. And I would explain that to students. You know, we're going on to the next unit. You need to stay current, but submit anything that you have that is still allowed, that you still are allowing to submit. And there again, you make that quite clear from the start, is how long you allow things to do. Now I have colleagues, like I said, if we have 10-week courses, they leave their computerized homework open for the entire 10 weeks and let students go back. They don't take off any points. I find that unacceptable.
Candy and Steve.
Oh, okay.
We need to set this room up for the next session, which
Okay.
is 11:30.
Okay, no problem. And like I said, folks, please don't hesitate to reach out to me in the discussion or email. I'd be glad to talk with you in some other time. So thank you, everybody, so much. And I thank you for participation. Sorry if I didn't get to your questions, but please don't hesitate to email me. I'll be glad to do that. It's cmowen at 7961 at gmail.com. Thank you so much.